Hey everyone, welcome to episode 18 with John and Shamananda live. Say hi, John Atkinson.
How's it going, everyone? Hope you guys are having a great week. Happy episode 18. We're excited to kick this one off for you guys. In terms of the theme of this and the discussion is solitude is the key to personal growth. It's the state or situation of being alone, but not being lonely. So a lot of times people get that mixed up. Guru, I wanted to start out with this is why do you think solitude is the key to personal growth?
My goodness. Well, there's I could go a lot of different directions with this. The very first thing that came to my mind was and please understand that John sends me all of these questions that he's going to ask me before we go live, and I never look at them. So when he asks me, I have these organic responses, and then I get to think about them on the spot. So I don't pre-prepare any of my answers. I let it be, you know, I let it be authentically in the now. So as far as solitude and what it can actually do for you, when it comes to spirituality, there is a place that you get to come from that is in the quiet. It's like in a void. And in that place, if you can get to that place through meditation, where you can silence the mind and you can silence all of the conversations that you're having that are getting in the way of you hearing authentic, universal guidance or guidance from your higher self, then you're really going to be plugging into what you get to be plugging into in order to elevate. So solitude, in many ways, not only allows that quiet to come in, but it gives you time to reacclimate. It gives you time to offer yourself some self-love and some time for just simple contemplation about your life. Because people get so busy with everything that they're doing in their lives, they don't often take the time for themselves for simple reflection. And if you don't do that, you're not actually going to be uh, having the aha moments that you get to have in order to begin elevating your consciousness at all. In fact, a lot of things are going to be left by the wayside. There's going to be conversations that you should have had with yourself a while ago that'll be lingering. And these types of things can actually cause a lot of problems. So, taking the time for yourself and engaging in acts of solitude to recharge, to have these types of conversations with yourself, to engage in the quiet and in the void of that silence, to give yourself an opportunity to hear what your guides and what you as a divine being wants you to know in order to support you in this lifetime is critical.
I love that, Guru. And I think, a lot of times people view solitude time maybe as a punishment of themselves, or they don't, I think we've talked about this in past episodes where people use, busy a lot. We live in a world where many are fearful also too of solitude time, of being alone with themselves or feeling alone. Why do you think that is?
Well, if we really think about it, how many how many people are doing their best to distract themselves from the quiet all the time? Uh, they do everything that they can. They don't want to be bored. They want to have their phone. They want to have their games. They want to be engaged in some sort of activity, be it work or something else, all the time so that they don't have to hear the silence that ultimately information is going to come from that they don't want to look at. So there's a lot of avoidance. And in a lot of ways, we've built our society on avoidance and not listening to that part of ourselves that really wants to speak to us. So yes, people avoid it because they're afraid of what's underneath and what's going to come out if you actually spend the time to clear out all the clutter so that you can actually say, yeah, I'm ready for this information. Tell me what's going on. Because your fears come out of that. And because that part of your mind wants for you to resolve it. So naturally, as soon as things get quiet, those are when those things will slowly come up to you and say, okay, so Uh, can we work on this now? It looks like you're not doing anything. Hello. Are you doing anything? Yeah, okay, so, you don't need the sphere anymore. So let's work on this. And, you know, who, who, who wants to do that for the most part in America or Canada? Or, I mean, there are groups of people, but for the most part, the vast majority will avoid. So, yes, if that answers your question, that's why people don't want to do it. They don't want to recognize that part of themselves. They don't want to give and offer that part of their mind in order to support with moving forward or growth, because people avoid growth like the plague. It's an epidemic.
That's so good. And I liked how you said people avoid it because it's true in terms of people waking up each day and going about their lives and, maybe they have family, maybe they have kids, sometimes overextending themselves on their timelines, on their time frames, and not taking, I call it the me time, right? The me time is always the most important to fill our cup up before we could go serve others and show up. What's the difference between solitude and being lonely? Because there is a huge difference on that, and people get that twisted.
They do. Well, so in my opinion, solitude would be choosing to be alone as a way to heal yourself. So, choosing the different types of activities or just quiet time as retrospective, as a way to heal, as a way to replenish. Whereas feeling lonely has to do with sitting in your junk, sitting in your pain, and not doing anything about it. Not looking at why, not engaging in self so that you feel replenished. It's kind of the opposite. It's like a one will fill you, and the other, because it's more of sitting in the problem as far as being solution oriented, will deplete you. So if you're feeling lonely, I'm not saying that feeling lonely is some sort of crime, or that you did something wrong. It's not what I'm trying to illustrate here. I'm just saying that if there is a feeling of loneliness that's happened, then work gets to happen. There gets to be a effort to go in there and see what you can do to heal that. See, to heal the parts of you that are causing the pain. Because loneliness, there's a lack that's happening. There's a lack of self-love. If the self-love is there within somebody, they'll never feel lonely because they'll feel complete with just themselves. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think when people realize when they're doing the personal development, the solitude part is instrumental because it takes time to reflect. It takes time to take stock in what you're doing. And so in regards to the four bodies, which we talk about often, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what type of ways do people have you helped your like clients with in terms of solitude time to really reflect on their growth, and taking that time to have the solitude time?
Yeah, and I'd like to share some of those things, but I'd also, before I do that, I'd really like to hear the different ways that we've implemented you to have your solitude time and how it's been effective for you.
I love that. So yeah, so I think with myself, mine's always been smaller pivots than the typical person. I've had major pivots, and so those minor adjustments for myself was really just taking that time out to ground myself. So one of my solitude times is being out in nature. That's to my solitude time. Obviously, having quiet time with God through meditation, through reading any books that correspond to that, and also too is really diving deeper into that gratitude journey. So, gratitude walk. We've talked about it before in episodes. What are we super grateful for? And having those times of solitude, but also too it's fascinating, Guru, in terms of when I started working with you, because even before that, I love and I think I get it from my dad because he was a only child, and he always told me, he's like, I love being alone, and I'm fine with being alone." And that gave me, like, permission growing up as a young boy or young teenager. It's okay to have alone time, you know? And so, sometimes I find a lot of comfort in that solitude time. So, as for working with you, I was pivoting really fast. And so it was imperative to take solitude action. And what I mean by that is, hey, you know, if I'm surrounded by a lot of people all day, every day, that's actually stunting my growth. And what I mean by that is, if we're not taking that solitude time to reflect, to write out what we're, you know, grateful for or how far we've come, then the work, I don't want to say the work is not, what's the word, is not worth it, but we put in so much effort and so much things to pivot and change and, you know, focus on the personal development, that a lot of times people miss this most important thing, and that's the solitude time. So you highlighted it really a lot for me, is like, John, you work with the general public, you own a business where you serve the collective, and you have a team, you know, you're a mentor in a lot of people's lives, and a lot of people come to you. And so you're giving a lot. So keep that space to receive. And that's through the solitude time, is creating that space, creating that quiet time to really cultivate one of those, I would say, a routine, you know, and that changes through seasons, as we've talked about in past episodes. And I'm at a time where, you know, I take a lot more alone time now, and I'm okay with that. I say no a lot to, sometimes, you know, obligations that maybe in the past I would say yes to, just to say yes. And so, I think it's one thing too, Guru, you taught me a lot more about solitude boundaries, is like, yo, you could say no and feel good about it, you know. And there's a lot of times people in our world, especially here in the States, is that carbonated lifestyle to be like, oh yeah, I want to go out, I want to do this, I have the obligation with family, I have my friends. It's like, well, when do you have your time, you know? And I ask a lot of people, and it's one of my favorite questions to ask, is like, what are you doing for yourself this week? And a lot of times, Guru, people can't answer that, and that's part of, I think, a solitude lifestyle, right? A solitude awareness, that you helped me cultivate. So those are some
Absolutely.
those are some things for myself. I could go on and deeper in things, but that's been pretty much a gateway to my personal development success and the journey so far. So
Yeah, and you know, and you made some really good points. There's a lot of people don't take the time to give themselves that kind of love and consideration. So it's really, really important to make that time for yourself and saying, hey, you know what, I have a strong sense of self worth. I know this is something that I need. So I get to do this for myself. And a lot of the time, people don't feel as though they're worthy enough to do that for themselves, and their time gets to be allocated to every single other thing and person and whoever on the planet. You know, and so just taking that time and doing that is so difficult for so many people, just for that thing alone, just for that reason alone. But I wanted to actually illustrate something that maybe might not ever be talked about within this realm, and that is just the idea that everything on this planet has a polar opposite. So, as an example, if you're spending a lot of time with people and you're offering a lot of your energy and guidance, you know, if you think of the yin and yang, there's going to be two very similar shapes in one circle, and they kind of look like little fishies, I guess. And you know, so if you're going to cultivate and live in one most of the time, and that's all you do, and you don't go to the other side of it, a lot of the time you're going to feel out of balance, especially when it comes to exerting energy and time. So if you're only developing that one side where you're giving and giving and giving, and you're not going to the other side where you're just replenishing and living in the other side of your, your yin and yang, then you're going to come up short. You're going to come up short. Now, I'm not suggesting that everything in this world is something that you get to experiment on the other side of, but if you're going to have one side of your personality, just so you know, the equal and opposite exists somewhere within you. It must, otherwise, the one side would not exist. So, with certain types of personality traits, we get to know when we get to how we get to refill different aspects of ourselves. And energetically, this is one way. Um, and we get to think about that diagram, so to speak, in order for us to understand how to replenish when it comes to certain things. And in this way, when it comes to energy, we get to make sure that we're allocating alone time just for ourselves. Because if we're offering so much of ourselves to other people constantly, and we're not sitting there and refilling our tank and saying, "Yeah, I love myself too. I get to spend this time with me as well," then you're going to burn out. You're not gonna last very long. And you're not sending the message to yourself that you love yourself. You're sending the message to yourself that everyone else is more important than me, and that's not going to work in the long run. You get to be I said click to resume on my thing, so I guess we're back. So hopefully we're in the same. It looks like you're in the green room here. All right, say something, John.
What's up, you guys? Dropping too much fire over here. Let's go.
Yeah, that was really strange. All of a sudden you were just gone and I got this weird alert. But anyway, so please continue with what you were saying, and we will try to seamlessly move into whatever our conversation
So you were saying some good things in terms of, let's see, am I popping up? Yeah, I might be. In terms of just the polarities and uh, the yin and yang of the energy. So being around certain things and being able to cultivate that. And so I was thinking of this in terms of who I work with a lot. So in my business or even at work, I work with a lot of women that are moms or a lot of men that just like are so focused on their work. And so can you touch on maybe for a, a women's perspective, whether she has kids or not, that guilt of giving more time to self, and then as a male is like in that go mode of providing and working so much, uh, how important solitude is in regards to men. Yeah, maybe just your clients that you deal with in those respects.
was. Yeah, this is a really common problem, and it's a big problem with a lot of people. I have a lot of mothers that come through, a lot, a lot, that talk about how they don't have time for themselves because and it's they have kids and they have a husband and they have a life, and they even run a business at the same time, and maybe they do it from home, uh, and there's just zero time for anything. Even meditation. In order for me to meditate, I'd get to wake up at 3 in the morning when everyone's asleep, just so I can have that 1 hour of quiet time for myself. And because no matter what you do, your kids are knocking on the bathroom door. Are you going to the bathroom? Can I come in? Can I watch what's going on? Can we play a game? And it's like they don't have any. It's like I just please just go to the bathroom for 5 minutes. Like this is I'm sitting here and all I want to do is finish this what I'm doing here. It can be very frustrating for a lot of moms. So the only thing that I can say, and I know it's difficult, is you get to be resourceful, and you get to find a way to make the time. So even though it might, and a lot of the time it's almost impossible, honestly, because there might they don't always have they don't always know how to create the resources to make time, because even a babysitter or Sometimes that's really really hard for a lot of people, finding somebody that's reliable and trustworthy, especially nowadays with their kids. It's not easy. I hear that a lot, even in Orange County, where you would think that they'd find an easier time here. It's a nice neighborhood, and there's some really great people here, but they're struggling big time with finding quality people that can watch their kids, and and it's hard to know who to trust. I even remember in my 20s when I was interviewing for babysitting jobs, and you got understand I was interviewing for babysitting jobs in my 20s. I mean, even that, from when I was a kid, I used to be able to babysit my neighbors' kids for money when I was 13 years old. There was no interview process. The interview process was calling my mother and saying, "Hey, can your kid watch my kids?" Like that's all that happened. But, in my 20s, as someone that had, a certain amount of education, and I was articulate enough, sitting down with couples who are interviewing you for a babysitting job. So what kind of experience do you have? How many kids have you babysat? Oh yeah? How many? Hmm. And just so it looks like, you're only 24. Yeah. So how much life experience do you really think you have to watch our children? Well, what do they do all day? Well, mostly they're going to sleep probably most of the time. And when they do wake up, you just make sure that you do this. So, but what's your experience? And it's just, and it wasn't, and I understand that, but you have to understand too that the process was it was really unnerving. And I think part of the reason why the parents were acting like this is because so many people would come through that were irresponsible, and there was probably a lot of dangerous stories. So I get it. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it was really unnerving. I thought, I know how to do this. I know how to watch kids. I've been doing it my whole life, and I'm good at it. So this is really crazy that this is happening, you know? But things have really changed, I guess is what I'm saying. So as far as mothers finding quality time for solitude, it's harder now. And, and they don't always have a family that can support as well. So for those mothers, I would suggest, and I know it sounds awful because you probably aren't getting very much sleep, but wake up when everyone's asleep and take even 30 minutes and sit with a cup of tea or something. Sit and meditate and sit in the quiet, and even sit outside and just, if you can, and just watch the trees flow, and sit with yourself in the silence and just enjoy being with yourself. You get to, unfortunately, do drastic things. There's people in different parts of the world that will actually wake up in the middle of the night and have tea and snacks. So it's not, it might not be so common in America, but there's other parts of the world where it's normal to wake up in the middle of the night and actually eat a little bit of food and have some tea and visit with people, and then you go back to sleep. So, there's no reason why you can't do that for yourself, even if you're, even if it's for just 15 minutes at night, just doing that for yourself, making a cup of tea, doing that, going to sleep. I think that you'll find that even that will support you. As far as men specifically, taking the time for themselves, sometimes it's similar. They're a family man. It has to do with their kids, and a lot of the time the people that I see are running businesses, and so their hands are really really full. But the application is similar. It's really about loving yourself enough to try to find that time and to create the resources to do it. And so, whatever that looks like, it depends. I can't really give specificities because everyone's life is so different, and you really get to find the little hole in the niche in there that can support them with finding that time and creating that time for themselves. But be resourceful. Understand that you're not without resources in this life. If you believe that you don't have the resources to create whatever you want, it is a form of victim consciousness. So do your best to Pull yourself out of that and understand that you're a very powerful being that has the ability to create whatever they want in this life, and that you're not a victim, and that you're not helpless. And if you can start digging into that idea, then things will begin to change. So that's what I would say about that.
So good, Guru. I liked how you brought up the babysitting. So, those that don't know me, I have three older sisters. And so, with us growing up, my oldest sister was like a second mom, and so she would babysit us. But then what really sparked, similar to you, Guru, was like other people's family were like, "Oh my gosh, like you take care of your brothers and sisters, you could take care of our kids." And so my older sister, before she got married, was actually, and she still is to some degree too, is professional nanny, and there is a role like professional nanny, like people do that for their career even when they do have kids. And so I like how you highlighted that because that's a big thing. And just to think of yourself, how you've helped other moms create their solitude time is powerful. And then I thought of my sister, of like how many families has she helped, like, their relationship, like, their relationship with self, like, the moms just adore my sister, and, helping them create solitude times, because there's times where it's like she would show up to these houses, and maybe the mom can have that time in her bedroom where it's quiet, alone time, reading a book, doing her prayers, whatever, quiet time with God. And also too with like the husband, hey, like I'm coming home late. I'm gonna hit the driving range because I love doing that, or the gym. So it is hard. Things have changed quite a bit on finding reliable help, and I think it goes back to getting out from the tribal days of like, I think of neighborhoods too. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Is how much neighborhoods have changed or do change. So it's like maybe you move into a place where there's a lot of kids, but people come in and out of there. So I know when I grew up, we had a lot of great families that lived on the block, that could take care of us. Other moms or sisters that were babysitting us when our parents would go on date night or whatever. I was fortunate to be the youngest, and then that is really eye opening. But I think of one of my other sisters that kind of has taken on that role, like you said, and it's really interesting, you guys. It's like when you hear some of the stories, it's almost that luxury of too much time now. And then, like you said, Guru, even you've said it to me, is how committed are you to the commitment? So I want to ask our viewers, how committed are you to your solitude time moving forward after this episode, right? It's a choice. We all have choices. We all have the same amount of hours per day. And it's how, like you said, being resourceful and being creative to make that time for yourself and set boundaries. Have a loving partner that understands, have a family that understands, friendships, um, relationships that way, family as well. So, but yeah, that triggered a good thought of my own view of seeing that. And then I thought on terms of like the male or even female, the solitude time and relationship to the four bodies is a lot of times, you guys, a great solitude exercise is just focusing on the physical because it's tangible, right? It's, hey, I'm going to take an hour for myself to go to the gym, to lift weights or run or, get active, do something I love away from my kids, away from my family. And that's my me time. So a lot of times people do that. I know people that wake up extra early to um, execute that in the morning by going to the gym, and that adds hours into their lives. I read a real interesting book that might support some of the viewers. It's called 168 hours. So we all have 168 hours uh, each week to live our lives, to do certain things, and it really cultivates how we utilize our time. And I think you've told me this before when we first got working together is track what you're doing. And it doesn't have to be a week. Just take time for the next 2 days. Where is the time being allocated? And then go from there. And I think sometimes people will shock themselves because they're just like wasting their time on maybe on social media or clueless TV or just not even like maybe just sitting there doing nothing and they don't want to be doing that or maybe they choose to be doing that. But at the same time it really highlights where our time's going because like you said, Guru, you highlighted is like I think sometimes we have more time than we actually think about. Um,
I'm so glad you brought that up. And the reason I'm so glad you brought that up is because uh, it's actually the next thing that I wanted to lead in and talk about. So, I mean, you were right on the money. And I think that it's just that if we're really being honest about what we're doing with our time during the day, a lot of people have a lot of stories that they make up about what time means and how much time they really do have. So, as an example, there are people that say, well, no, I don't have time to send that text message or email. Well, why didn't you text me yesterday? Oh, I didn't have time. Okay, come on, you guys, if we're being really honest about it, sending a text message for most people will take 10 seconds. And
mhm,
if you're really being mindful about somebody else's experience or time, unless something unless you're in the hospital with somebody who's dying or something that's really serious that's happening where you don't have your phone, or it's not very often where we don't have that 10 seconds to send that message to someone.
mhm,
So, if you're one of those people that said, no, I just don't have time to send that text, or as an example, just a quick message saying, I'm okay. Sorry I couldn't connect with you today. We'll connect tomorrow. Something just to be, just to be respectful of somebody else's boundaries or what they're going through in their, whatever it might be. Don't kid yourself because there is time conversations or intimacy conversations. If you're saying, oh, I don't have the time, what you're really saying is that you don't want to be intimate with that person. You don't want to go there. So, a deeper level of self honesty about the time that you're giving yourself. You don't want to be intimate with yourself. I don't have time to give myself love. No, you don't want to be intimate with yourself. You don't want to get to know yourself. You don't want to know what those things are that's going on in your mind. You don't want to weed out the issues that are going to come to the surface if you're spending time by yourself. So, that level of honesty is really, really important. So, allocating your time, which is, and I know, John, I know part of the reason why you brought it up is because you and I have talked about it. We've laid it out, and like you just
mhm.
said. And that is the next step, really, is just getting really honest with yourself about where your time is allocated, right down to the minute in a lot of cases. So during the day, uh, not just being really vague, like this is when I work, and this is when I'm going to eat, and this is when I'm going to go to sleep. It's also about, okay, so, well, you got home, and when you got home, there's this big huge gap of time between then and when you ate. So what did you end up doing? There's so there time gets lost really easily. So if you're really good with how you negotiate your time, you're going to not only get a lot more things done, but you're also going to, I think you'll find that you have the time for self-reflection, you have the time for self-love, you have the time to be in solitude with yourself, even if it's for a couple of minutes a day, just to show yourself, hey, I do love myself and I do get to reset. So I
Mhm.
do love the fact that you brought that up.
Yeah, and it's a huge part, you guys, and you brought it up, Guru, is like how committed are you to your solitude? And you also brought up is people ignore it because there's so many underlining layers to their solitude time where it could create a breakthrough, it could create change, and people are fearful of that. People are fearful of the change that might occur with solitude time that they might not want to face. That, like you said, if they haven't taken those solitude times to reflect, to unwind, to connect with their higher self, it could come out, and sometimes it's not fun, right? I could acknowledge that is sometimes the solitude time isn't fun. It's messy because we're going through personal development. We're going through development of the four bodies, really getting super clear and honest with who we are and who we want to be within ourselves, and how we stand in this world, what we want to create, and what impact do we want to leave, what legacy. So the solitude time, one of my favorite topics. And I think as we go along, as we hit into summer, um, I think sometimes people have a little more flexibility. So we challenge you to create a solitude time. What would you say, Guru, with your clients right now? Um, is the overall like pulse of your clients, like, do they have a real good schedule of their solitude time, or do you think you're supporting a lot of people right now getting back into a solitude routine?
Good question. I think that most people, the majority, the high majority, don't have any kind of routine for solitude time at all. They don't think about the time they get to spend with themselves in order to reconnect with themselves, to love themselves, to have the conversations with themselves that they've been avoiding, to go over information that has been bothering them, or simply just to sit in the quiet and to, you know, just to zone out and to even be bored. People do not usually have that in their schedule. They don't think about it, which is, you know, it's very sad, because in order for us to actually, just to replenish and recharge, we need to have that. As just as a human being, we need to. And there's people out there that are terrified of being alone. I know some of my students who make sure that every single hour of every single moment of their day is with being with somebody else, or scheduled out so that they're not actually by themselves. And a lot of the time, they don't even want to sleep alone, meaning they don't, even if they don't have a partner and this person doesn't, they would have people stay over and just sleep beside them, because they don't want to feel like they're alone, because they're terrified of what's going to happen when they are. And that's a clue that you really get to work on yourself. You get to do the work that you're avoiding, because something is obviously coming out of that silence and saying, pay attention to me, let's work on this. And they don't want to. They just don't want to. They would much rather avoid it and create this solid front, this boundary, this wall of people and information and and tasks and all kinds of things, to avoid that kind of self-reflection. And if you're one of those people, just recognize that whatever that is that's coming out there, that's waiting for you to talk to it, or to listen, or to come to some realization, you created it. You did with your consciousness, you did with your thoughts, and it's not going to hurt you. You did it. You're not going to hurt yourself with it. It's just, don't be afraid of what you already created within yourself. Just face it, take a good look at it, and see what it wants. Because it is you that wants to bring it to the forefront. It's not some random thing out there that's trying to do it. It's you. So if you find that you can't be alone because you don't want that to come to the surface, understand that every single time it does, there's a part of your brain that really wants you to take care of it. So the deeper part of you wants you to do it. That's why it's happening. It's you that wants you to do it. So even if your conscious mind that says no, 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 uh, the deeper, more intelligent part of you says yes, 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 and I'm going to keep trying until we get this. So understand that, and do something about it.
Such a major point of, like you just said, is your higher self wanting you to do that. I think so many times people, John, I need a sign, or Shamananda, I need a sign. It's like the signs are right in front of you, and the signs, you guys, are in the solitude. So if you're struggling right now, if things are in chaos in your life, create a commit to a solitude routine day in and day out. And what solitude does is it creates clarity over your life. And so you become clear on what are your intentions, right? What are your intentions in the moment? What are some of your actions that have bared the fruit or maybe bared the weeds of your own garden of life. And so you get to really hone in on what's really going well for you. And I always say, with my sporting background, is solitude gives me the time to get back to the drawing board and figure out, find solutions. I always love how you say it, is be more resourceful. If things aren't happening, how can I be more resourceful? How could I tap into my creativity to solve the solution of whatever is going on in my life? I just want to bring up, because I found it right now here, is so the 168-hour book, you guys, literally says you have more time than you think. And so when I read this book, it's by Laura Vanderkam, and it comes with like what we're talking about. It literally comes with a workbook that you could really hone in on hour by hour, or I think it even breaks it down to every 15 minutes if you really want to get clear and have clarity over your life. So that really helped me. And I remember a time, Guru, when I first started, I was like, how am I going to create quiet time when I'm already waking up for work at 5 a.m.? And you said, just wake up a little bit earlier. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I'm already, waking up earlier. And I think people focus, I wanted your input, Guru, because I was thinking about this the other day, is people focus so much on what time they need to wake up rather than what time they need to go to bed. And they could have a rock solid winding down time, either as couples or as single people, that they don't tap into. They rather, hey, I'm just going to carelessly unwind to XYZ. But I've really been honing in on my unwinding routine, which has set me up for success for the morning routine. So can you bridge that gap of like how important an unwinding routine is for your clients, for the collective in general?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and I know that that was one of the things you were really struggling with uh, for a while is how your inner child was wanting to stay up later and have that time, have that playtime with you, and how it was very difficult for you to go to sleep in order to wake up early, and you struggled a lot because of
Mhm.
because of the difficult hours that you were working. But you're right. I mean, it has to do with and again, this is stuff that we worked on before, and I love the fact that you're bringing it up. Is learning how to go to sleep, uh, at regimenting the time you go to sleep so that you're setting yourself up to win, so you can have that extra 30 minutes in the morning by yourself, and have that time to be alone, with solitude and reflection and all of that. It's really great to do that first thing in the morning. It's great to do it with meditation as well if you're pairing it with that, especially as the sun comes up. I mean, the metaphor, uh, when it comes to the sun rising and how you're wanting to move forward with your consciousness, is actually a very important one. So, but yeah, if you can manage and plan your evening so that you can actually go to sleep at an earlier time, then you're not going to be so concerned with that devastating. Oh my God, I get to wake up at this time, and and that it's almost, because everyone seems to do that, but less people pay attention to, well, if I go to bed a little bit earlier, then I actually will be fine when I wake up, and I'll have the strength and energy to even wake up earlier if I needed to, because now I'm actually getting more sleep than before. So, uh, so this doesn't encompass the people who have sleep problems. Obviously, people who have difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep, and where their sleep is all over the place. That's a whole nother conversation. And we're not going to cover every single person in every single situation with just covering this. There's obviously going to be holes and things that we're missing. But if there are holes and things that we're missing, then we would love to hear how we can support you. So, send us a message and send us a text and let us know, so that we can support your specific situation. Because obviously, if we're using blanket statements, it's not going to hit everyone. And
Mhm.
that's all we want to do, is we want to show different examples of how it's different for different types of people, different types of situations. And we can only do that if we have those different types of situations in front of us. So please let us support you with yours. and show you how we can help you make yours work in your life, because everyone is unique and we get to treat everyone as such. So hopefully that supports you.
I love that, Guru. And I wanted to end on this, you guys, because Guru, you've helped me to solidify this. Is really being clear. So this, we've talked about solitude, you guys, this episode and what that encompasses, some tools, but also to looking at your disconnect days. So that might be, the weekend time for you and your loved ones or yourself. But those disconnect days are vital to your prosperity, to your abundance, to your solitude time of creating something and being having a foundation for your weeks, for your months, for your half years, for your years, and for your future. And so there's a time too. I just wanted to share before we ended this is I didn't have a disconnect day, and so I just was working. I was working my 9 to 5. I was working my regular my business as well, leading a team all over the place, and I didn't establish a disconnect day. And what I mean by that is literally having a boundary of, hey, from these certain hours, I'm just going to focus on myself, or maybe I wanted family time, relationship time, friendship time, alone time to do things that I really enjoy. And so I just wanted to end on that. If you don't have a disconnect day, really sit down with yourself, look at, we just mentioned the 168-hour book that was super supportive for my growth, and being super clear on when you want to take a disconnect day through your week. And it doesn't have to be a Saturday or Sunday. It doesn't have to be a full day. It could be like, hey, for 4 hours I'm doing this. I'm getting into my practices. I'm getting into something that fills up my cup. And so that's been super supportive. Guru, you helped me on that too, big time, of like, just like, hey, pause everything, really take some journaling time to what are your goals, what is your vision of yourself, and how do you want to make that. And through all the views, that changes, right? That changes, seasonally, right? And but if you have that skeleton of, hey, I'm going to create the time, I'm committed to the solitude time, your life and everything just gets more enhanced, and your life becomes deeper and more meaningful because you've paused, you've created that time, and given yourself that gift. So just wanted to end on that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Guru, before we get to the next part.
Mm. Well, I it's such an important conversation to have with yourself. You know, as far as negotiating time uh, spent and how you want to spend it. And sometimes that conversation is going to involve your inner child and what your inner child wants to do, because it can be playtime, especially if you don't have uh, that kind of, if you don't create fun in your life where you get to experience a little bit of joy or games or play, because us as human beings, we get to have some room in there for just things that are lighter, things that are, because our worlds can become very dense with obligations and work and and dealing with people that are going through a lot of stuff. It just depends on your life. But a lot of people nowadays express my undying love and gratitude to all of you for being so supportive and being such a, you know, it's been a great experience being on YouTube and having so many people out there that actually really care about the content we're creating, and it's been really lovely. I feel like we've been given a wonderful opportunity to grow this platform in a way that I honestly didn't think would grow the way that it's growing. And while we still are reasonably small, it's still actually growing quite fast uh, in timeline. We haven't been doing this for very long. It's only been maybe the last since the beginning of the year, and you know, so we're actually amassing some people, and everyone's been wonderful. So thank you for that. we're really grateful for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to seeing how I can support you more, and we can support you more moving forward. And I'll give John a chance to say goodbye.
All right, everyone. We're super grateful for you guys tuning in, changing lives. We don't ask, we don't do any like commercials or anything. All we ask is if this, hit home for you, that you share it with someone that you love, that you care about. And like Guru said, there's so many of you that tune in weekly, so we appreciate you so much. We ask, share it with your loved ones even more, and we're just excited of what we're creating here for the collective. Like we always say, if there's anything, reach out. We love different topics. We love the dynamics of the collective and how much it's changed and how much it's going to change through these incredible discussions for all of you. So thanks so much. Love you guys.
We love you. Thank you. See you next time. And if you're watching, just watching the recording, then we'll see you in the next video. Namaste.